Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Now, I wanted to keep talking a little bit about running deities, as there's just a few more things I wanted to cover there. Wanted to cover one more thing and also provide a particular example I'd read, gosh, over a decade ago now. But I mentioned before that deities are incredibly incredible. I mean, just by default, they play the long game. Like I said, when you're an ancient, timeless, functionally immortal being, I mean, centuries are nothing, potentially millennia are nothing. All of that can just start blowing by so fast, and you're affecting multiple worlds, whole entire planes of existence, some of those realms being infinite. So that just puts deities on a fundamentally different power scale, and in comparison to mortals, their resources are essentially infinite. Getting to a deity, threatening a deity, hell, not even just deities, demigods, demon lords, different devil lords, or the different, just the different creatures, different angels, and uh, psychopomps, and all these different other creatures should be incredibly difficult. It should be the course of an entire adventure arc, like something that epic level characters are going to be doing. Characters anywhere from level 17 up to like level 25 will be struggling to challenge these kinds of creatures. Not just because of how incredibly high a challenge rating a particular creature or, you know, deity, demigod, whatever might be, but just because of the amount of layers upon layers of defense, tricks, traps, portals, and so many other methods that it could spend an infinite amount of time discussing that they have to go through just to get to their target. That's going to be insanely difficult, incredibly difficult, and will take the course of several adventures. But this does bring up one particular thing, though. Deities and the like may have plan after plan after plan and backup plan after backup plan, but the adventurers are an X factor. The adventurers have somehow made it through all of this, and while these different creatures will be no stranger to having challengers come before them, they're used to beings somewhat more on their power level coming before them or challenging them. It's not like Asmodeus never sees a challenger. It's just Asmodeus is usually able to deal with most challengers before they can ever really become a threat to him. And his layers and plans are just so multifaceted and interconnected. I mean, oh, there was a hag that was ruler of I want to say the seventh or eighth layer of hell, and was it the realm of Malbolgia, Malbolgia, however you pronounce it, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, but she was a ruler of one of the layers of the nine hells, and all the other devil lords were just constantly grumbling and agitating over it. But then he went and just split her apart. She grew grotesque and large and just started blasting to pieces and just spread over this weird realm that had these weird intersecting angles where these boulders just infinitely rolled and tumbled down, just crushing and grinding all the unfortunate people, devils, and other monsters that happened to be there. And she just split apart, blasted apart her rib cage became mountains, her skull became this titanic fortress, and Asmodeus's daughter was ascended to devil lord status, ruling over her own lair. This made her, as much as you can expect from a devil lord, somewhat more loyal to her father, Asmodeus, and set all the other devil lords just scrambling, worrying about what their position was, because now the power imbalance of politics and everything in the Nine Hells was just shattered and scattered apart and kept everybody was back on their heels and scrambling for the ropes, just how Asmodeus wanted it. This consolidated his own power as well as elevated a relatively more loyal general into the ranks that he needed to get all the support that he needed. And, now in the Forgotten Realms, he's a deity. So But my point is, Asmodeus does not really have to deal with challengers all that often, and when he does get them, he just imprisons them in an eternally frozen block of ice where they're unable to do much of anything. It's another Demon Lord whose name escapes me at the moment. Demon Lord, Devil Lord, excuse me. Terrible mistake to make there. But the thing to keep in mind, though, is that even though the players are an X factor, they're the monkey wrench thrown into the gears of their entire grand works. These beings will understand how to seize upon the opportunities that provides, because while it is an unexpected X factor that's just stumbled into things, it's not going to be typically anything they haven't seen before, that they haven't experienced before, either through their own just existence or vicariously through others that they've witnessed these different kinds of things. I mean, obviously, they've probably looked in on their supporters and their followers every once in a while, seen, those mortals are kind of screwing everything up, and they just ganked the high priest of this cult over here, then they unraveled this general's plot over there that I had going. That's unfortunate. I really did not want that to happen. That was kind of crucial to these plans here. So these different deities are going to have a full understanding of what the players are capable of, meaning the players are going to have to come up with something new, something different. Yes, their regular strategies are going to still have some effectiveness, but the deities are going to understand how to disrupt those strategies, and they'll have the means and resources to do so. So this is an opportunity for all you DMs and storytellers to pull out all of those stops and say, well, you're fighting a god. This is automatically beyond hard mode. This is hardcore. This is hell mode. This is the most difficult fight you can imagine, and this god, this demigod, whatever, is going to have a step-by-step plan for picking you apart. So figure out what that plan is ahead of time. I mean, obviously, shut down the mage, shut down the druid or the cleric, or if they have all three of those things, shut them down fast, because that spell casting just radically alters the planescape for the players and for their opponent. So getting that out of the way is going to be massively important. And when you look at the mechanics of running a deity, but there's also the roleplay aspect to consider too, and this is where my example comes in. I don't remember the name of the adventure, but it was in 3rd edition, well, 3.5 edition, and it was an adventure that took players from level 1 to level 20. And it involved the demon lord Grazd and the goddess of the drow, Lolth. And essentially what the crux of the story was is that Grazd is one of the 3 demon lords in contest for the title of Demon Prince of the Abyss. Something that has been contested over since Mishka the Wolf Spider was slain and scattered by the 7 Wind Dukes of Akka. And he wants the title badly, but despite the fact that he controls functionally, or at least as close to functionally as you can get, the largest amount of territory in the Abyss, it doesn't necessarily translate into an advantage. As the layers of the Abyss, some of them are infinite, some are finite, and he controls the triple realms of Azagrast, where his palace exists on all 3 realms simultaneously. But again, he's still only in contest for the title against Demogorgon and Orcus. He wants to advance and elevate himself, and he's done this by concocting and constructing a deal with Lolth. And the idea is he's going to get a contract made, infused with a divine spark gifted by Lolth. And with that divine spark, he's going to get a number of other demon lords to sign on with him and form an alliance and a treaty with him at the head. Why would they agree to this? Well, he's arguing that they need to have this mutual defense pact. Their eternal blood war with the devils, the Batazu, is not going well. Or at least it's still at a grinding stalemate, despite the fact that they have essentially infinite demons, while the devils, functionally compared to mortals, their numbers are infinite, but the devils still, by comparison to the demons, have far, far fewer numbers. But the brilliant tactics of the devils, especially Asmodeus, is keeping them in check. Not only that, but they have to worry about the forces of good as well, and because they're demons, they're constantly eating and fighting each other as well. So, by securing this alliance, where even a half dozen or so other demon lords are no longer fighting each other but unified, they can present a significant, powerful threat, not only to other demon lords, but to all the rest of the multiverse, all the different planes of existence. Because now you have a section of essentially a coalition of six, seven, eight different, essentially infinite armies that are going to just crush and steamroll everything that's in their way. And essentially, the players go off from dealing with some minor problems to finding out about the Drow taking these massive slave raids and are making these huge sacrifices as part of a lead in for this deal between Loth, the Drow, and the demons. And it builds up to a point to where finally the players are contacted by an agent of Orcus, one of the three demon lords in contest for the title of Demon Prince of the Abyss. And this agent essentially, if I'm recalling correctly, uh, gives the plot. This is Gross doing. He's going to enact something terrible for everybody, including Orcus. And it's up. The players are going to need to stop it. He can't come out because, well, if he blows his cover, he's no longer a useful agent for Orcus. But he does have access to a key needed to open up a part of the palace of Azagrast, and get into the meeting and just blow the whole thing wide open. And the players are able to do so. Well, the adventure assumes that they're able to do so, that they survive, they get through the abyss, they manage to navigate their way through, and they have a benefit that Azagrast is, at least as far as the abyss is concerned, sort of peaceful and make some allowances for mortals because, well, Azagrast is the demon lord of lust. He has a lot of interactions with mortals, and he values a certain amount of trade with them. So it's not unusual to see the occasional interplanar mortal caravan coming through to trade and exchange all manner of bizarre, evil, arcane, and unusual trinkets, souls, and slaves. So the players make their way through, they get to the palace, and they use this particular key to get into the palace, and they have the help of this agent going through up to a certain point. Well, when they arrive and they blow the whole thing, they blow the whole plot wide open, and they assault this conclave that's being held, Groz seizes upon the moment. This is not what he wanted. He didn't expect them to show up there, but he seizes on the fact that these players have shown up, and he recognizes, I forget how, maybe the agent did show up, or maybe there was some lingering stench or taint, or they had some kind of a mark on them that the agent could use to keep track of the players. All of those are plausible. But Groz says, look, see, this is why we need this treaty. Look at how Orcus has betrayed us to these forces of good. We need this in order to survive and finally wipe out these dissident forces that are trying to destroy us, win the war against the Batazu, and then take the fight to the forces of good. We need to wipe them all out now. So this was a severe monkey wrench thrown into his plans. This could potentially unravel the entire plot, and Groz has still found a way to keep a considerable number of these potential allies on his side. And now the players are having to fight Groz and a number of other demon lords. I'm trying to remember who all was there. I want to say Pazuzu, the Queen of the Succubi. Dweeblex wasn't there. Dweeblex does not have the scope of rational thought necessary to be there. He's a demon lord of slimes and oozes. But you get the idea. There were these different powerful demon lords there, and now the players have to fight them all, or find a way to get them to turn on one another, to sow further discord, which, these are supremely intelligent beings, but at the end of the day, they're Tanari. They're demons. They're inherently chaotic and evil, and eventually evil will turn upon itself. And that's what they need to have happen before the contract is signed, before it's infused and signed with finality with the spark given by Lolth. They need that to end, because if that divine spark is given, it becomes divine law and forcibly binds everything together through that divinity in the abyss. And it would make Graz the de facto leader for this particular conclave. So that's a, well, you get the idea. That's an example of the absolute worst thing possibly happening for Graz's plans, but he still finds a way to seize upon this seemingly disastrous moment and still pull something beneficial to himself from it, keeping all of these different allies on his side to help them crush these particular players. Now, as the more I think on it and the more I've talked about it, the more I realize I've probably misremembered this, because bunch of demon lords invited into Graz's personal palace, that could present a lot of different problems. But I think it was neutral ground, at least as neutral a ground as could get in the abyss. And it was different aspects of the demon lords, but they're all like still level 18 to 20 something ish. So it's still an incredibly challenging fight. And the point still stands that these kinds of beings, and Graz is just a demon lord, he's not a god, but he's a cunning manipulator. He understands how to weave and maneuver these different plots and these different pieces on the board. And even though he's backed into a pretty bad spot here, defeat still isn't certain, and he's got plenty of resources on his side. So that's the kind of thinking that you need to have applied when you decide to run these kinds of creatures, these kinds of characters in your games. This goes beyond, just even the kind of crime lord, different guild leaders, different leaders of mage orders, or even cultists. This is a higher level of thinking that's can be very tricky and hard to employ. It can be hard to bring about just because we're mortal beings. We're flesh and blood, and this is all, fictional fantasy. It's good times, it's fun times, but you need to really, really step up your game and write this out and think this out ahead of time. And it can be hard to figure out exactly what you need to do, because it's dependent entirely on how the players go about solving these different things. But you can make the reasonable assumption that these different beings are watching or somehow staying informed as to what's happening, who's doing what, how they're doing it, and what their capabilities are. So when they show up for that confrontation with the big bad, or the big good if you're running an evil campaign, then you can say, okay, this is their plan. This is how they're going to go about defeating these players. If the players manage to accomplish A, B, C, and D, then this is going to put them in the absolute worst case scenario. But this is how they're still going to try to salvage something out of it. But if the players can only accomplish A and D, well, it's not that bad. It's definitely a worse fight for the players, but it's still not a great result for this demon lord or devil lord or whoever. So you can still have things set up reasonably where, despite how much of a problem the players have presented, these beings are in a position to still maximize the advantage that they can wring even out of a seemingly hopeless situation, and still present an incredible challenge to the players and put across to the players that these beings are not to be trifled with. That's the ultimate goal right there, is make them think, shit, this is gonna be a hard fight. It's gonna be fun. Because there's nothing more rewarding than seeing this horrible, awful villain that you've been unraveling the plot for and getting there right at the end and say, grinding your face into the dirt is just going to be fun. There's nothing better than that. But With that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. If you enjoyed today's video, go on down there and hit the like button for me. And also, if you want to enjoy more content here at the Gamers Den, there's a couple of videos popping up this way that you may also enjoy. Or if this hasn't been your first stop, then hell, why not consider subscribing? That way you get notified the next time I upload content here and be a regular member at the Gamers Den. Certainly, I know we'd love to have you here. But for now, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.